Welcome back.
Here we go.
So today, maybe unexpected, because maybe you expected, I don't know, sage, cedar, sweetgrass. We want to talk about coffee.
I know we'll get to those later, but
I was joking with Marita before we recorded that when I became a father, someone offered me a t-shirt that says half human, half coffee. And that was a joke because you are going to need a lot of coffee to go through that portal to that rite of passage. So we're going to talk about coffee today. Plants that is also, like corn, like tobacco, widespread on the planet. One of those plants that has successfully enslaved us into cultivating it, right? Those plants have really mastered how to make sure that they will spread all around the world. So coffee.
yeah, I know. A companion plant, right? And many times a shade tree, very similar to cacao. They're related. I have coffee out in a bowl out here. It's been teaching me a lot of lessons. Really challenging to actually go through the harvest processing of it. But I think, we last week we talked about corn, right? And we talked about how, down in Peru they have, you were sharing how they have whole, buildings in honor of corn, right? Worshiping corn, right? Well, we do that, right? We have a huge barista coffee we have little, churches called coffee
That's our
shops.
morning church, right?
Our morning church. It's our daily church. It's our daily prayer, right? And I think it's amazing to look, and I love that you keep saying the intelligence of these plants to be widespread, to rope humans into, right? Because humans always like, oh no, we planted you, we're doing this. And they're like, no, no, no. We planted that seed of need, right? And so that, just having that as a moment of shock and awe, to look like, wow, plants do really kind of rule our lives in so many ways, right? And look at what we've done with coffee. Now we want to get into, and I know, Angel, you're going to tell us a very beautiful story, but when I see coffee in the general world and out there in the world, and hey, I was a barista, I worked for Starbucks, I've done all of those things. And we have this idea of what coffee is, and it's very small, it's very short-lived, right? We want to get it something fast and high and wake us up, right? So it's a plant that we know in some beingness wakes us up, but does it create awakening?
Mm-hmm.
That's what part of coffee is supposed to do, to help us in our awakening. But we're only using it in a small way because that's how narrow humans have focused, right? They only look at coffee like, okay, we're going to get excited about origin and how we grind it and how we taste. And so much of coffee is not about coffee. It's about the barista, or it's about the coffee maker who's decided to treat his coffee in a certain way and add this, right? There's a guy here on the island, I think he does Paradise Roasters, and he sells like, a quarter of a pound of coffee for $60, like really small roast, very kind of specific, because they call him a chemist. And I really find that fascinating that a lot of our supreme roasters around the world, we call them chemists and we call barista artists. But where's coffee? Who is the shaman, right? Or who is the one who's listening to coffee? To coffee, how coffee wants to be made, wants to be grown, wants to be roasted, right? When we make cacao here, we listen to those 8 pounds at a time that we do. How do you want? Where do you want? How would you like to be processed? No one in modern society is having these conversations. They have the conversation of taste, and they have a conversation of gustatory extravaganza. But there's so much more if we learn how to approach this plant of awakening from just something that wakes us up to truly be in relation, right? And it's more accessible than Aya. It's out there, right?
It's not
We don't have
endangered.
exactly, right? So I love that story that you told, Angel, and I'd love for you to tell that story for us about
Yeah,
your
it's
coffee
interesting
ceremony.
how people come on your path, right? How you pray and how things manifest. But years ago, I was really thinking about coffee a lot. And, I've always been drinking coffee. I've gone, years sometime without it or months without it. And, trying to find a good relationship, a good balance with that plant. And a friend of mine mentioned, he said, do you know there are healers that work with coffee, shamans? I mean, they didn't call them shamans, curanderos in Colombia. I was like, I don't know. I say, I have a friend, that's what he does. And he comes to New York City once in a while. And long story short, we're here on the land with that person. And he brought his coffee that he cultivate, that he, transform. And then he start preparing it in a sacred way. So the way his ancestors used to prepare coffee, um, the temperature of the water needs to be very specific. Even the way you collect the water and the way you touch the coffee and how you pass the coffee through a filter. And anyway, we watch him doing this incredible, like a tea ceremony in Japan, right? Very advanced practice. The way he moves around it, the way he touch it. And there was, some friends that were here, like there were 5 or 6 of us, and a few people there said, well, I can't drink coffee because coffee makes me too high and I have palpitation and I get very weird when I drink coffee. And so he served the cups of coffee to everyone, quite a good quantity, a mug of coffee, and he invites everyone to drink with a prayer, with putting an intention, with really connecting to that plant spirit. We drink that whole mug of coffee, including the people that never drink coffee. And for 2 hours, we went into that circle of sharing and connection. There was no high or palpitation or discomfort. It was a most smooth, beautiful, sacred moment experience. And he said, you see, it's the way you treat the plant. If you don't have a relationship to it, or if you don't treat her well, she's not really going to be very happy. And that's what you're drinking. But if you listen to the plant, if you really understand what she needs, what she wants, what you were talking about, Marita, then the plant is going to gift you something really beautiful. She's not here to harm you. She's not here to make you feel crazy or, your mind very agitated. It was quite the opposite. I felt very calm. And he was telling me that the way they are processed, there's a lot of caffeine in that because it's a very slow process. It extracts a lot of it. So this idea that somehow caffeine is the bad guy or the bad girl out there, that is what making us really bad. He says nothing to do with that. It's the way you treat the plant. I know we talked about it when we talked about tobacco and cigarettes or corn with genetic modification. We can think about coca. How coca is so sacred, and cocaine, is drug. So coffee is the same. I mean, every plant is the same, right? So for me, there was this moment where I realized that a lot of plants that we consume as habits, we really don't really see them anymore, right? We don't really witness them. But maybe we can take a moment in the same way we do with a cup of sacred cacao. When I was drinking my coffee, I was just looking at the coffee first and looking at it and just looking at the color and the smell, taking the time, slowing down, waiting to get permission to feel that connection, and then bringing it in that moment. There's a whole change of the way the plant is going to interact with our bodies, with our minds, with our spirits. So I've been wanting to bring him back, but he lives in Colombia. He doesn't come very often, but I really been wanting. I was like, everybody on the planet that drinks coffee should know about the
Mm.
sacred way. And it's something that is a lost art in many ways. Very, very few people still have that knowledge, but I think it tells us that, like for everything, unless we have a sacred relationship with something, the relationship back is not going to be sacred. And it's our
Yeah.
duty, it's literally our obligation to step in and to question how we relate, in our lives with the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom and each other, right? But you literally can do that. I remember doing it with garlic and with other plants that are really strong teachers, and you can really completely change your meal from just feeding yourself into a sacred experience of relating with another being.
Yeah, I always tell a lot of my students that um, much of the wisdom of things is how they grow, and that's the truth of coffee, right? And we talked a little bit about corn, right?
Mm-hmm.
How they grow is part of their medicine, and it's how they function with us and what they teach us. And I don't know if you've dried coffee. There's different processes of doing it, but old way, right? Not to just push, water through and burst the cherry, is to dry it in the sun, right? So you're sitting out in the sun, and it's really thick, it's really big. And then once you then we hand did this, I don't recommend it. Hand peel that, then there's another small shell around the bean before you get to the coffee,
Mm-hmm.
before you get to the coffee bean. So here again, just like we talked about corn having layers, coffee has layers, yet we consume it so quickly. Coffee actually teaches us to slow down. We don't even recognize what's good on the outside. We go for what's inside. Yet in our modern day in society, we only look at the outside. We
Mm-hmm.
don't take time to get to the heart of ourselves or of other people. We just look. Is your berry fast? Is it big? Is it juicy? Does it look a certain way? Right. So I think part of the lesson of coffee is that it's about appearances. Here is something that we already are consuming the heart of, the being of, the
Mm-hmm.
prayer of, not the outside of it. Yet we're so obsessed, right, by how things look and what the outside looks. If you look like a shaman, or if you don't, or if you show up in a t-shirt or you don't, right? I show up in t-shirts most of the time, right? And so coffee teaches us about appearances. Here we have something that we have built churches around the world because we're drinking the heart of it, the kernel of it, the prayer of it. Yet we're obsessed with the looks. We're obsessed with how coffee shops look. Oh, I like this vibe, right? I want to sit here. People sit for hours. They do their work, right? So coffee is about connecting us beyond appearances, because it takes a long time, just like we always like to use onion, right? The layers of an onion. Try the layers of a coffee bean. Try that. And I think if you get an opportunity to go pick coffee or go look at how it's processed or do it yourself, I highly recommend it. But next time you go, treat your barista with kindness and compassion, because that's also what's going in the cup. I hope today that we can find new ways of being received by the plant kingdom by just shifting how we perceive.
Yeah, your cup of coffee tomorrow morning, or maybe as you're listening to this on Sunday morning, maybe take a moment to look at it, to slow down, and to just maybe start a whole different way of relating to that plant.
Yeah. And always give back to Mother Earth. So little sip.
Thank you, Marita. Thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.